Act 2 is where most stories go to die. But not yours, because you're about to understand one of the most understood beats in the Save the Cat method: fun and games. This beat isn't just where the plot goes to chill out, it's where your story proves what it's really about. And if you get this part wrong, the entire thing collapses. Hence the soggy middle syndrome. But more on that later. Today, I want to talk about arguably the hardest part of writing your first draft, and arguably it's the most important part of your book, and that is Act 2. And if you don't really use the 3-act structure like I do, then it's really just the middle portion of your book. I use the Save the Cat beat sheet quite a lot, and if you guys aren't familiar with what that is, I'll be throwing up a graphic on screen. But one of the most important plot points of the Save the Cat beat sheet is the fun and games section, which is in the middle of your book. I can't exactly remember what percentage of your book it is. Save the Cat is broken up into percentages, so it might be like 25% of your book, and it's a big chunk of your book, the fun and games section, or Act 2, or whatever you want to call it. The middle part of your book is arguably the most crucial part of your book because it's supposed to deliver on the premise that you promised your readers when they read, the back blurb of your book, or if it's on the inside jacket. People put it on different spots, but basically when someone reads a summary of your book and they see all the different tropes and they realize what genre it is, there are certain things that are supposed to happen, and usually most of those things occur in Act 2, the middle, the fun and game section. And that's what I want to talk about, because this specific section of the book tends to be the hardest to write, and it also tends to be the hardest to get right. I did not script that part, by the way. That actually just came out of my brain like that. There's also an entire syndrome called the soggy middle syndrome. If you do get the middle section of your book wrong, it can kind of drag down the plot and your entire book really, and it can turn readers off pretty quickly in my personal experience. There's definitely been times where I'm watching a movie or reading a book or any, narrative, and the middle just feels like a slog to get through. And I wanted to use this video to talk about how to avoid the soggy middle syndrome and what issues to look out for when you're writing Act 2 or the middle section of your novel. Now, I mentioned the soggy middle syndrome, and I want to point out 3 major issues that usually pop up and are the main causes for this issue when you're writing the middle part of your book. And the first common issue is filler sequences. When the soggy middle occurs, usually it's because there's a lot of scenes and sequences that feel kind of disjointed or don't really progress the plot in any meaningful way. It kind of just feels like filler episodes in a sitcom where things are happening, but they're not really important. I kind of liken it to animes when they have filler episodes. It's like you watch the episode and you can enjoy it and there's things happening, but if you skip this episode, you're not really missing anything when it comes to the plot. And this tends to happen when some people get to the middle part of their book because you either get stuck or your plot kind of hits a wall and you're not sure where to go next, or maybe your characters are acting up. And there's plenty of things that, attribute to filler sequences, but it's key to recognize when you're in this sort of stage, and you kind of want to look at all of your scenes and make sure they're either progressing the plot or, developing your characters or developing your world, but you don't really want to feel like your characters are just going through the motions and they're just going from point A to point B and point C in a straight line. You kind of want them to, kind of be going in a squiggly line. I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but you don't want things to feel too linear, because then it gets predictable and boring and it feels like filler. And that's what you want to avoid when you're writing the middle of your book. Now, I just wanted to take a quick break to introduce the sponsor of today's video, SKILLSHARE. If you're working on Act 2 of your book and struggling to keep it fun and exciting, SKILLSHARE is honestly one of the best places to sharpen your storytelling skills. They have classes ranging from plot structure, world building, and character development that go way deeper into how to keep your middle from dragging. And the best part, you can use SKILLSHARE for free for an entire month if you use my code or link in the description. So if you want more tools to level up your writing and keep your readers hooked on your story, or if you just want to learn a new skill, definitely give SKILLSHARE a try. Now, let's get back to the video. Now, while you do want your scenes to be progressing the plot, I did mention that it's okay to use them as like character development. And personally, I think the fun and game section is perfect to divert a little bit from the main plot and to build up any subplots that you might have. If you're writing multi-point of view, it's probably best to build up the subplots each of your characters have. I'm currently writing a space opera science fiction novel, and it's only one point of view, but there's the main plot, which is the war going on in the galaxy, and then there's my main character's B plot, which is him trying to uncover a millennia-old conspiracy that the Empire has tried to cover up. And that's kind of what I've been using some of the fun and game section for, but mostly what I've been using it for is to have my characters explore the galaxy and, you know, build up on a lot of the intrigue that the A plot has built, but there's other things going on underneath it. And that's kind of what I'm using the fun and game section for. My plot is still progressing, but it's not going in a straight line. We're taking detours that fit with the story. It all feels pretty natural, and that's kind of what you want to do to avoid, you know, your middle section feeling like filler. And I kind of already touched on the second mistake a lot of writers make when writing the middle section of their book, but you don't want your book to be too plot focused. You want to deliver on your premise, which is the whole point of the fun and game section. And that's why I said it's okay to take detours from the plot every now and then, as long as they make sense. You want to avoid your book feeling too flat and it feeling like your characters are just jumping from plot point to plot point, because that doesn't really leave any room for, you know, character development if they're just worried about the plot at hand. It's okay to use a lot of this section to continue fleshing out your world, fleshing out your characters, and fleshing out any subplots that you have that aren't necessarily connected to the main, you know, aspect of your book. And the third major mistake that I personally see in the fun and game / middle section of your book is forgetting the actual tone of your book. I feel like when it comes to this middle section, sometimes the entire story or the entire vibe just shifts, and it's okay to, you know, shift the vibe or, you know, maybe delve into a slightly different genre every now and then, but you want your book to feel cohesive when it comes to the overall tone and genre. Like if someone picks up your sci-fi novel and it starts to feel like a romantasy in the middle, they're gonna put it down, and that's definitely something that you do not want. That sudden shift is going to throw off your readers, and it's going to break their immersion, and it's gonna make them wonder, what the heck am I reading? You wanna be aware of your tone, aware of your target audience, and make sure that you're delivering on what you promised. Let's take The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins as an example. And I'm going to be talking about the book here, but this applies to the movie as well. The first couple of scenes or chapters is the setup. It gets us to the arena. Katniss volunteers, the Capitol and her mentors prep her, and the rules are clear. That's all Act 1 though. But here is where I find most writers struggle. The middle. This is where the soggy middle syndrome kicks in. Instead of raising stakes, sometimes the story just wanders around aimlessly. But notice what Suzanne Collins does in the fun and games section of The Hunger Games. This is the promise of the premise. We don't just say Katniss is in a deadly televised competition, we get to see it all in action. The cornucopia bloodbath, the scramble for supplies, the shifting alliances, Katniss climbing up a tree hiding from the careers. These moments aren't just filler. They're playful variations on the core idea of the story. What if teenagers had to survive a gladiator deathmatch on live television? The fun and games beat works here because it delivers on the spectacle, it tests Katniss in new ways, and it keeps the conflict dynamic. It also isn't random. Each challenge either pushes her toward growth, either resourcefulness, either showcasing her resourcefulness, her resilience, or her compassion, or it deepens the central conflict. For example, her versus the Capitol and her versus the other tributes. And that's how you avoid the soggy middle. Instead of stalling the story, you lean further into your premise. You give the audience the moments that they came for, and you use them to build momentum toward the midpoint. Now, of course, everyone's going to have their own different approach on how they want to handle writing the middle section, Act 2, fun and games, whatever you want to call it, part of their book. But I do have 4 tips that I want to share with you guys that I've been using when writing my current work in progress, Anarchist. And my first tip is to revisit the premise. What is the fantasy that you promised your readers before they even started reading the book? If you're writing a murder mystery, that's what you want to deliver on in the middle of your book. You want to take them through all of the clues, all of the interviews, all of the red herrings and misdirects. That's your premise, and that's what you want to deliver on in the middle section of your book. And tip number 2 is to brainstorm 3 to 5 set piece moments that only your story could tell. Using my own story as an example, it's a sci-fi adventure novel, so some of the set pieces that I came up with were like big sprawling space battles. I introduced a heist element on a ghost planet. There's chase scenes. There's just certain things that you'll only find in a sci-fi novel, and you want to be cognizant of your genre and come up with some things that you would want to see in a story that you're writing. So if you're writing a romance, you might want to look up some common romance tropes and see what things readers may want to read. If you're writing high fantasy, you're going to want some court intrigue, or you're going to want that big battle sequence in the middle of your book. You're going to want something to keep your readers engaged and something that they're expecting to read, but put your own little twist on it. Tip number 3 is to tie at least one of those moments into your character's internal arc. So you have your 3 to 5 set pieces made, and you want to correlate one of them to your character's arc. Whatever internal journey they're going on, make sure at least one of those set piece moments is relevant to the story that they're trying to tell. And my last tip is to raise the stakes subtly. You kind of want to keep upping the ante as you go. You need to make your characters feel like they're in danger and things are getting more and more heightened as they progress in the story. Maybe they're learning new information. Maybe the enemies are getting closer. Maybe things are getting a lot more dangerous than they anticipated. You want to just keep upping the stakes because it ups the anxiety for your reader and it makes them anxious to figure out what's going to happen next, if your characters are going to achieve their goal, if they're going to be defeated, or whatever's going on in your novel. You just want to keep raising the stakes in the middle section of your book. And those are my 4 tips. Let me know if you guys have any alternative tips, and make sure to leave them down in the comments so that you can help out your fellow writers. So to conclude, the fun and games section of your book should not feel like a break in the story. It is the story. So if your act 2 feels flat, or you feel like your story isn't really going anywhere, consider this one question. Am I giving the readers what I promised? And if the answer is no, refer to some of the tips in this video. I'm LDJ, a fantasy and science fiction writer who has been working on a 10-year project that I call the Eternal Keyverse, and I'm sharing everything that I've learned along the way on this channel. If you found this video helpful, drop a like, share it with a fellow writer, and subscribe for more videos like this. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.